So let's move on to the next topic, which is loop. So when we have a program, we don't want the student or the user need to run it again and again. So let's say we have a calculator. So we don't want the user need to click the program and run the calculator, and then after finish inserting a value, then it run the operation, then it stop, show the display the output and it stop. So we want the user are able to run the program again and again, so it can put a new number, it can calculate a new number again and again until the user want to stop. So this is where we use loop. So we allow the user to continue using the program again and again, or for numbers maybe we can use it for at a set, we can specifically mention how many times we want to the program to loop. So let's try a few example. So a new code. So in loop is just like they have similarity with condition decision making. In decision making we have a condition. This is also happen in loop. So we also have a condition in loop. So when the condition is met, the loop stop. So in loop we have three kind of loop. We have while loop, nested while loop, for loop, and nested loop. Nested loop can be either nested while loop or nested for loop, or maybe a mix of them, a nested while and for loop. So let's try loop. So let's try something really simple. So let's try with for loop. So using for loop function, you need to start with for, and then you initiate a variable. It can be any name. So let's say I just name it count here. For count in range. This is what we usually use for in for loop function, where we use for the variable in range or in something. So like for count in range of, so here we specifically mention the value start from, let's say I want to it count from 0 to 10. So from 0 to 10. And we then at the end double dot. So what it will what this loop will do, basically we try to print out the value that we count. So the value is start from 0, so we want to count print out the value 0, and then value 1, value 2 until value 10. Print. So you can see that up here, for count in range of 0 to 10, it means that count will store value 0 at first loop, and then it loop the program, it print the count which is contain 0, and then it go up again, and then it store the next number which is 1, because for the range 0 to comma 10, which is 0 to 10, the default increment for the loop will be 1. Unless you mention it. If you want to mention it, at the end of them, you just mention like 1. So it means the increment of 1, 2, increment of 2, 3, increment of 3, and so on and so on. So here, we just leave it to default and print count. So which means that the program will be display all the value that store in count. So when we click run, we can see that 0 until 9 only actually. It's not until 10. Because it's actually 0 stop when the count reach value 10. So for loop, you can see that it start with 0. So when it print count is 0, then it add 1. So it 1 now. So 1 print 1. But when it's 9, like count is 9 currently, so 9 in range of 0 to 10, so it's still not reached 10 yet. So it print count 9. But then plus 1, it's 10 already. So when it go up again, count already reached number 10. So it doesn't print value 10. So if you want to print value 10, you need to add 1 more. So it will be 11. And so on and so on. Let's say you want to print from 0 to 5. So you need to write 0, 6 because you want to stop it at 5. So that is how for loop work. And also, like I mentioned before, we also can specifically mention the increment of the loop. Let's say I want to increase by 2. So like 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So this is where we mention the increment. So we run, is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. But what happened when, let's say, we play around with the increment? Let's say we put -1. So here, the program only start when the value is reach 11, which it only print until 10. So when we run, we don't get anything. Because why? This is for loop. This here is an error. You can see that it's we call it logic error. So it don't have any syntax error. It's correctly written, but the logic is wrong here. If it's 0 and -1, so which means the next number will be -1, then the next number -2, and so on, and it will never end. So the condition 11 will be never met. So that's why the program never print out any number. So you must have a correct logic with correct syntax, then the right output will be displayed, and the program will work correctly. Okay, let's say we want to also count down the number from 10 to 1, but we don't want to write it in this way, from 10, 0, and define the increment is -1. We have another way to do it. So we just write it normally 0 to 10. So when we print, it is 0 to 9. So how we can reverse the value, we can make the value from 10 to 0 is by using a reverse function. So basically reverse and open bracket, put all the range 0 to 10 is in the bracket, then you click run. So you can see that it reverse the value that initially it print out 0 to 9. Now it print out 9 to 0. Okay, so that is for functions. So let's try out a while function. So let's try to do the same thing. So here in for loop, the increment is automatically performed in the for loop function. So let's try while function. So while, so like put a notes up there, while loop. So while loop, while, so you need to while, what is the condition? While num is less than or equal to 10. So the program will keep running until the num value is above than 10, which is maybe 11. So it will stop the looping. So while num is above or equal to 10, double and start with double dot. And indentation is very important. You need to indent, so it means it's under while loop block. So now you do the same thing. So print, because we use num here, so print num. And the different thing between for loop and while loop is, in for loop, when using for count in reverse, so the count is actually been initialized. But now in while loop, you not yet initialize the variable, so you need to initialize. So the starting value of num is, let's say, 0. So num equal to 0. So you need to initialize the value before you are using the loop. So while num less than 0, print num. So let's try run this program. So, oh, sorry. It is because I should print the num variable. So now you can see that it's print out 0, and if you scroll down, it is unstopped value. It's run again and again, and it is not stopping. So this is because we are entering a infinity loop. So why this is happening? This is because when you look here, the num is less than, it will loop until the value is above than 10. But here you can see the value is always 0, which is less than 10. So that's why the program never stop. So the difference, if you notice that for loop, the loop is automatically increased by 1 or whatever increment you mention, but in while loop it never happened. So you need to specifically mention that the increment, so that at one point it reached the limit or the condition. So here you need to num is equal to num plus 1, which means like it's increment by 1. If you want to increment by 2, you can change num plus 2 or etc. So like say we try num plus 1, then we run. So you can see that it start from 0 and end until 10. This is because we use less than or equal. If you use less than, it will stop at 9. So it is you need to mention the increment down here. So then the program is running and add by 1. Then at one point when it reach number 10, it stop the loop. So for like while loop, you also can use it for decrement or descending value or countdown. So you need to start with the value that you want to start. Like say you want to start countdown from 10 to 0. So you need to start num equal to 10 and the final value is 0. So while num is above than 0, then it will keep running. So it 10, 9 until it reach 0, then it stop the program. So while num is above than 0, print num. So now because this is countdown, you need to change how we do it, perform the operation. So -1. So when we run it, you see it start from 10 until 1. Like we see before, like we only use number as the condition. So we see in while loop before this, we use like while at is above than 10, less than 0, something like that. But in for loop, it is true that because the for loop is exclusive for numbers condition. But in while loop, we also can use string condition. So let's try using string condition in one of our program that we already created. So before this, we already create one program which take mark from the user and then print out the grade of the user. So okay, we copy and print it here. Then we want to loop this one using while loop. So while, then we need to create a condition. So we want to create a program that can loop over and over again until the user want to stop using the program. So at the end of the program, let's say we ask, does you want to continue using the program? So if the user enter Y, then we loop again. But when the user enter N, so it stop the program. So while it's not equal to N, so which means like whenever the value is installed inside variable exit is not N, then it will keep loop and loop again. But when the exit contain capital N, then the loop will stop. And at the end of the while should have double dot. Now we have to make sure all of them is indented. So select all of them and indented. So then they will be under while loop block. So now we already enter the condition. So now we need to receive input from the user so that it will never going to be a infinite loop. So the user will enter either yes, y or n in a exit variable. So continue using program. So y or n. So at the end of at the end of the program, we ask the user whether they want to continue using the program or not. Okay, exit input. I missed that one there. And so the program will keep running until the user enter N. Okay, I already clicked run, but it's not running. Why? Because like I mentioned before, for while loop, we need to initialize the value at the beginning of the while loop, before the while loop. So like while loop, so we still not mentioning initializing variable exit. So I need to write exit. So the first value is y, mean that I want to loop the program. So you note that in order for while loop to be run to be executed, it must have initial condition correctly. So like say like here, it need to have other value than y. So when I click run here, then it can run our program that we write earlier. So 23, now it print out C, and then the program asks the user, does he want to continue using the program? So let's say I say, okay, I want to use the program. So yes, then I can reuse the program and again. But let's say I don't want to use it anymore. So I just enter N, then the program will stop. So and also note that here it is specifically need to be capital Y and capital N. If you want to change that, you need to use here exit.upper like we did before. So we ignore any user input, either upper letter or small letter.
Next, we move on to another function that loop can do. What loop can do is they can loop a list. So let's have a list named flower again, and the flower contain hibiscus, rose, and lavender. Open and close bracket, don't forget. So what we want to do is we want to print out each of the item in the flower list. So what we can do is we can use for loop. For x, you can put any variable to replace a temporary variable, which is it will store one variable, one item from the list one by one. It will take out and you can use it one by one. So for x in flower, double quotation mark, double dot, and print x. So what this program will do, the program will take the list and it will check how many items contained in the list. Then it will loop one by one each item in the list. So you can see that it print one item at a time. So let's move it, try change it a little bit. So we have, then what is it, what we have. So you can see down here we have hibiscus, we have rose, we have lavender. This is really important things. If let's say we want to access all items in the list, each of them individually, so we can use this function. And another thing, before I forget, that we can copy a function by using copy function. So we can introduce a variable, another variable, let's say flower2 equal to flower dot copy, open and close bracket. So print flower2. So try again. So you can see it also copy the list. It is very useful to use this function when you want to have another set of function, the same function, because like you want to make a manipulation, so you don't want to change the first one. So this is what you can do, is using the copy function on list.